Hello and welcome to the Powered by Rock podcast. We're going to be speaking with the Canadian punk rock band Trashed Ambulance today. These guys just put out their third full-length album, Future Considerations, after releasing 2 EPs and 2 LPs since 2014. This one is much different in my opinion for many reasons that we will be getting into, but suffice it to say, I absolutely love the album and I wanted to bring Josh and Ozone onto the show today to talk about the band, the music, and whatever else these polite Canadian gentlemen want to discuss. We'll get the sap straight from the source right after this.
You're listening to the Powered by Rock podcast with your host, Isaac Kuhlman. The Powered by Rock podcast was created to help showcase some of the best rock musicians in the world and to pass on to future generations the rock music that has inspired rock fans around the world for decades. We want listeners to be able to hear great stories and life experiences directly from their favorite artists, as well as dig deeper into music theory and talk rock like no other show you've ever heard. This isn't about looking cool, it's about getting real and having a great time. Without further ado, let's start the show.
Hello and welcome to the Powered by Rock podcast. I'm excited to be having our guests from Trashed Ambulance today, as I have had some conversation with frontman Josh about their band over the last week or so. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that these guys, while they make awesome music, they likely, they like to have fun and they don't take themselves too seriously. Hey guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Cool. So let's kind of talk about what led you guys to getting into punk rock in the first place. As for most people in the world, they aren't too familiar with, punk music in Canada unless it's Sum 41. And no, I'm not going to talk about the Avril Lavigne starting punk rock or anything like that. So what was the reason you guys got into punk music in the first place?
Who wants to go first?
You go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was born or grew up in northeastern Saskatchewan, Canada, which I don't know if your listeners will know where that is, but it's basically the woods. So, but somehow
the prairie provinces, right?
Yeah, you bet. So, yeah, Propaganda is from maybe 8 or 10 hours east of me. So, pretty much neighbors as far as Canada is concerned. Yeah. Just a quick dog sled away, and I was there. I kind of started like figuring out music that wasn't just on the radio when I was, like everyone when you're 10 or 11 or whatever, and had an older brother that had like Punkorama and all those type of albums, and he just put on, it must have been the first Punkorama with No Bad Religion and Pennywise and Rancid and all that, and I was very intrigued, and then I dove into it. I never really outgrew it. So they even found us in the middle of nowhere in Saskatchewan. Punk rock still found us.
Basically the same as Josh. I grew up on the east side of Canada in Prince Edward Island, and I got a cassette or a CD, I don't remember, from Tooth and Nail Records, Song from the Penalty Box, Volume 3. I think it was like song 2 or 3, a band Dogwood from San Diego came on, the song Rest Assured. It was 45-minute banger song, and I'm like, wow, I've never heard that genre before, and I love it. So, and then the like Slick Shoes was on there, MXPX, all the old Christian Tooth and Nail bands. I'm like, sweet. And then one of my buddies went to his house, and his older brother had like, I don't know, there's probably however many albums, NOFX and EP they had out at the time he had there. So I'm like, oh yeah, you like those bands? Go listen to this. And it's pretty sweet. So,
I think
maybe a little raunchier than your Tooth and Nail records.
a little different style, especially the early Tooth and Nail stuff where like it was heavily like Christian influence, like MXPX was still, writing songs about God and stuff.
Yeah,
for sure. But I've had the conversation before about those compilation albums. I'm like, I don't know what the overall return on investment was for the companies that put them out, but I can tell you, especially people like the Midwest and even like East Coast probably heard of more bands that way than they ever had by, listening to radio or MTV or anything like that. Cause those just didn't exist. Like you didn't hear punk bands anywhere except for those compilation albums most of the time.
Yeah, and they sure weren't coming to the middle of nowhere in Saskatchewan back then.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in North Dakota, and it was exactly the same. Like, I think I saw Real Big Fish in Fargo, North Dakota once, and I was like, this is the greatest thing that ever happened.
Trooper came to my town twice. Did Americans know about Trooper?
I don't think so. I've never heard of him. But
Raise a Little Hell.
Yeah.
We're here for a good time, not a long time.
The 80s boys rock band
in the bright white sports car.
That's
maybe
funny.
as a Canadian content. Maybe that's why they're so big in Canada and nobody else.
Yeah,
They're
well,
huge here, though.
it's funny because there's like bands from America that are big elsewhere that like you've never heard of in America. Like, I don't know, I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but there's plenty of bands. I want to say like, I can't even think of anybody, but there's like a bunch of like prog rock bands that are big in like Europe and stuff that everybody here's like never heard of them, especially like heavy metal and stuff like that. But yeah. So talking about you guys, obviously as a band coming together, you guys have had some lineup changes over the years. And I talked to you about this, Josh, but I know Ozone, you've been pretty much everything in the band except for a lead singer at this point. You've had people come and go, but what's kind of the current lineup? How did that get settled upon? How did you guys kind of come and go and deal with the, you know, the switches in lineups and people coming in and out of the band over the years?
Yeah, so this band was created kind of from the ashes of another band that Ozone and I were in called Chimp Change. So we spent all this money recording a brand new album, and then Ozone moved to Dubai. So at the time I was like, oh, it's like one or none type of deal. So it was like, we need us all. So I'm like, like it's not the same, gotta end the band. And now I figured out that it's no matter how good your next band is, you're starting from scratch. So like there's people that just love Chimp Change that don't even give Trashed Ambulance the time of day, right? And it's like it's the same guys. Like because of that, you know, through all the member changes, people leaving for different reasons, we're like, there's actually Ozone's like, you should keep the name, just keep the band and the songs, like especially as we're all creeping north of 35, you know, starting from scratch is not exactly the best scenario for us at this point. So yeah, as far as how this current formation of the band came, so we had a guy named Ryan that was one of the founding guys. He was playing drums for us for the first few albums and EPs, and then he decided he had enough of Alberta. His kids were old and or older, graduated, didn't need him anymore. So he's like, screw it, I've always wanted to just go, well, it's legal up here. I don't know, you're in Vegas, I don't know, is marijuana legal there?
Oh, it is.
Here, but
yeah.
Like,
They just legalized marijuana lounges so you can smoke it like in the little pot dispensaries here.
Oh crap, I don't even know if we have that up here. I've never heard of him. But yeah, so he did that. That's no bad blood or anything. He's just like, guys, I'm moving to BC. So Ozone actually came on because we're about to hit the studio to record a EP. So he played drums on that. And then I think we did it for a while and then kind of went on a hiatus and decided to get the band going again. And I knew a really good drummer who'd actually kind of auditioned for a while. And I kind of figured instead of maybe it'd be easier to train Ozone on the bass than to try to find another bass player. He's like, I never played bass in a band before. Sure. So it's basically how it did. And so, yeah, Riley was the guy that was on drums. So we were stoked to lock him in, even though he's in 17 other bands in town. But he seems to like the band. Not enough to come on the podcast with us.
Right? So it's Ozone on bass, you're obviously guitar and lead, and then Riley on drums.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Yeah, I think with most bass players, it's usually like, hey, what can you play? Like, obviously, if you play guitar, you can play, you know, the root notes of bass, but do you want to play it? And are you going to be able to do it for multiple years? Because that's always the problem, right? Like, you get bored as shit with bass if you're not really a great bass player. It's just like, man, this is like could be the most boring instrument.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky. The bass player before, I'm really good friends with him. He moved out of town too, so him and I are still pretty close. So I was like, man, like, if you listen to the older albums, there's a lot of bassing on it. So I'm like, man, you gotta show me what you're doing here, because I have no idea. So
it's like, how do you get that sound? How do you get that run there? I don't understand any of this stuff. Yeah.
Before we went to the studio, I actually took all my gear to his house. I'm like, man, here to set my tone, and he did. He's like, you want the Trashed Ambulance tone? Here you go.
That's awesome. Yeah, because you can have like that high, like the beep sound, or you can have like a really, really low bass, right? So for most punk, it's like in the higher register, so you kind of have that slapping, twinging kind of sound off of it. And that's not easy to get with a live bass setup.
Yeah, and this is the first lineup too, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that all three of us live within half an hour of each other. So
Nice.
it is convenient to actually be able to jam weekly and not say no to shows, because I used to live about an hour and a half away. And then, the old bass player lived 2 hours away. So it was tough to even get jams in. Before a little tour, we get together, 3 or 4 times. We get together once and be like, okay, let's play these songs we haven't played in 6 months and go. Right. So now it's, every week we jam at least, right? Once. So makes it a lot easier, especially when you're writing an album, to be able to try the songs 20 times before we record them. Other albums.
I was gonna say, at an hour and a half, your tractor's gonna run out of gas by that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Those Huskies are tired. The Huskies are tired. Eat some food by that.
So I know, Josh, in a comment to me, you mentioned that you guys have been previously labeled as a NOFX ripoff band. And I can obviously see some of the comparisons, but NOFX also sounded a lot like RKL, like I mentioned to you, for many years. So for me, every band's kind of heavily influenced by a handful of bands. But to say you are like a knockoff or a ripoff of NOFX, I think that's a step too far, in my opinion. Can you explain some of the influence and how you guys go about writing the music that, obviously maybe in Canada, they're like, you're the closest thing there is to NOFX, so you guys are the NOFX band, versus, hey, in America, we're like, you're a Canadian punk band that happens to be influenced by NOFX.
Well, I guess I should say that NOFX comparison just kind of, I used to be a lot more nasalier when I sang.
Yeah.
Kind of like Fat Mike. And although I was also influenced by not his antics, but his songs and singing of Ben Weasel. He's not a role model by any stretch of the imagination, but so yeah, when we went on a tour out east, because we played that Pooza Fest, and we saw a lot of people, obviously, and everybody would always come up, oh, you sound just like NOFX. And then at the time, we just released a new album, and all the reviews are like, Fat Mike. So I was like, I'm not even trying to sound like him. So then I was very self-conscious about not singing so on the next albums. I don't know if it's better or not, but we're trying. I'm trying.
Well, I do want to bring that up because obviously, well, we'll get into that later, but I do want to bring up the vocal performance on the new album, because I do think it's actually a step in an improved direction. But let's actually dive into some of the other stuffs about the album first, because, for anybody who's like, oh, this is a knockoff band or a NOFX kind of band or whatever, I think Future Consideration is actually going to blow the fucking minds off of people, because it's nothing like really anything that you guys have done before, in the sense that I think it's step up in production, step up in writing, step up in pretty much everything, technical ability, all that stuff. And, it's by far, out of the 2 or 3 albums, I think you've had 3, but you only have 2 actually on the online streams, and like a couple or 2 or 3 EPs. But it's going to be like you're kind of setting a new standard for the band. And it's kind of interesting. Obviously, most people don't get better when they get older. It's like, oh, it's like you've had your best album was your second album and you're never going to be that good again or whatever. Right. So it's like to get better and better as you're getting kind of older. Obviously, you're still younger than me, which is good. Can you explain how this is going for you guys? What was the mindset like going into making these songs and recording, and then, obviously getting better at doing what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of it, like, as far as production goes, like a lot of it in the earlier stuff is just done in my basement, DIY as can be.
Yeah.
And, and those type of songs are just kind of like, I kind of came up with a song and we recorded it type of deal. Like, wasn't a whole ton of collaboration until the bass player that Ozone mentioned. He would kind of go wild on the bass. But as far as the structure of the song, we didn't do a lot of that, mainly because the guys, we weren't all living in the same city. We couldn't get together all the time to really hash out. So I mentioned before, we were in that Chim Change. We went to Echo Base Studio in Calgary, which is the drummer from Belvedere named Casey. He produced that album. And I think Ozone would agree, we were not really prepared for that at all. Like, we didn't even have some of the songs like completed, which I know isn't that uncommon. But it's when you're spending a lot of money, you learn pretty quick that if you want to get good songs, make sure you have them down, like, as close as you possibly think they could be. So this time with this new album, like, I have a little studio, so we demoed them all out exactly how we thought they should be, and then we realized they were hard to sing, so we down-tuned them half a step. So did them all again. It's got them even tighter. So then we actually put those all to Casey, and then when it was time to go in, we were kind of walking in, like we practiced the crap out of them. That's probably where. And then the producer has more time to like spice up the songs rather than, you guys gonna play this right? There wasn't a lot of time wasting on our side, right? Like we were ready. We knew what we wanted.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, obviously working with Casey from Belvedere, I was just curious how he helped kind of shape the album, because a good producer will tighten things up, shorten some stuff, maybe track out something a little bit longer that you might want to elaborate on. They can hear things that you can't hear because you're so close to the music. But what was his kind of perspective for you guys, and what did he kind of deliver on his end?
We gave him free reign.
Let Ozone take this
when
one.
we went in there. Okay. Yeah, we went in there. We're like straight up. We're like, man, like we love everything you do. Basically, take the reins on anything. Don't hold anything back. If something doesn't sound right, if you have any ideas, don't hold back.
So he basically said, scrap everything you have and start over.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Well, there was one. The first day, it was just Riley and I in the studio. We tracked all the drums and the bass at the same time. And then day 2, Josh came down. And I think the first song we started to do was Blip on the Radar. And we played 2 notes, and Casey just stopped. He's like, whatever you guys are playing just sounds terrible. He's like, what you are playing does not match at all. And I think it's because we had practiced so long and so hard, and 6 months of practicing and demoing that it just, I don't know if our ears just got, I don't know, you can get nose blind. They got ear blind, I guess. I don't know. And so we basically, the chorus of that song was completely different, root notes than we went in there intending to play. So
wouldn't ear blind just be deaf?
Yeah.
Well, no, because I could hear them. I just didn't hear the sours.
Really bad at being a musician? Yeah, that's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then, once, after we recorded, we basically told him to, like, add any production stuff you want to add to this, like anything the songs need. Like, so there's tambourines in there, et cetera, et cetera. He may have played some guitar. We won't ever say that because he told us not to. But
The drummer from another band helped you guys by playing guitar on your own album.
That's how bad at guitar I am.
That's funny. Well, it's one of those things. Like I always tell people, like the hardest thing to do is actually record, because you don't realize how many times you mess up until you get into a studio and then try to play it perfectly, and you're like, that's fucking impossible. I can't play this perfectly no matter how many times I try.
You know what? I'll say, of all the times I've ever recorded, this is probably the most prepared everyone in the band was. Like, Riley one taked like most of the album, like, but I mean, Casey's good at editing too, so I don't know, like, you got it close enough that he can make it sound cool and not like a robot doing it, right?
Yeah.
So kudos to us. I also
one of the
purposely didn't put any solos on this album because
that costs too much money. Don't do solos.
Bob told me that.
Yeah.
And Bob
I was
Rock was in my ear. I don't know, Large Lurch, whatever. Whoever said no solos on St. Anger.
I was going to say, the one thing that's kind of stayed consistent from this album versus past recordings is that you guys do put some funny songs to kind of break up the social commentary in there. Do you ever think that certain songs are good or bad for the band to release on an album? I mean, some people are going to say like, oh, well, you have to perfectly craft a persona for a band, have that brand that symbolizes the sound or whatever. And certain songs may skew that brand. I don't know. Like, I feel like you guys kind of thrive on being a bit of a loose cannon and having that vibe in general, which I always find to be a fun way to go about recording music, because in the end, it makes like, a lot of, just energy, right? Like you feel like you kind of know that band, or you kind of, interact with that band easier. But even the most confident bands can second guess themselves. And you were saying, you were kind of self-aware of your voice. So I'm just curious if you guys ever think, what songs or what others may think of songs before you actually put them onto an album.
Yeah, I know one of the songs I wrote for the album was Eknalumba, so song number 3. And I think I took that as a demo, and it was like 3 minutes long. Mm-hmm. And it had a completely different chorus, had a bunch of other parts. And then I was like, you know what? I absolutely hate this song. So I scrapped it. And Josh was like, well, why don't you just shorten it down and, try again? And then I did. And I'm like, I still hate it. And we started jamming it live. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess it can stay on. But so I think that happens. I mean, I'm certainly no songwriter, but it's if it can happen to me.
Well, obviously, you're not good at making titles because you spelled ambulance backwards.
It's in the rearview mirror.
I know. And did you have anything you want to add to that, Josh?
Yeah, like you kind of mentioned, like I guess we have a vibe. I kind of like in my 20s, I listened to a lot of like the, the Midwest. So I guess I don't know if that's where you were from, but like the Dillinger 4, Dear Landlord style open means where they're kind of like, life sucks, but let's party and make the most of it type of vibe. So I've kind of never really outgrown that. I'm not smart enough to write like Greg Graffin or anything, so leave that alone. But as far as like we've done the stupid silly songs and they're funny, but I find there's a lot of staying power with funny songs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously on the new album, you do have the, the songs like, Stalk in the Park, for example, where you have Rob from the Morons, or I think that's how you pronounce it. It's not the Morons. Yeah. And then Emilie from the Punk Rockette, obviously she's the social media influencer, singing on there. And it's, it's a kind of a joke song about a guy who's trashed literally at a park, who thinks that he's woken up and stumbled upon the woman of his dreams, but she's totally sober and hanging out with her kids at the park in the middle of the daytime. And that's kind of setting that imagery, and telling that story. It's pretty funny.
And we sure lucked out getting the shitty Matt to do the video for us, because if you couldn't pick up on it from the words and the lyrics, the video really lays it out for you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, most songwriting kind of vaguely tells a story, and you kind of have to decipher it, right? Like most poetry and songwriting in general is kind of not clearly labeled so that you can just read it from start to finish. But, some of your songs obviously do that. And then that's one of the good examples where it's like, you don't have to be listening too intently to understand what's happening in that song.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually funny. When Robbie first heard it, he didn't realize that I literally meant merry-go-round. He thought it was like a metaphor. So he's like, I don't understand this song. I'm like, what do you mean? Drunk at a over.
Dude, I'm not Edgar Allan Poe here.
An actual merry-go-round.
Well, speaking of the guest vocalist on the album, how did these collaborations come about? Obviously, you got Rob, you got Emilie, you got Alex Goldfarb from Debt Collector, and Chris Kreuger from Bring on the Storm. How did these come about, and why'd you let all these singers show you up on your own album?
Any minute where it's not me singing, it's like a net positive for the band. I guess we can go through. We needed a female voice, and I'd met Emilie when I was out east. She's just, I don't know, if you're into punk rock and you pay attention on the internet, she's gonna pop up in your feed probably. Like she's very involved, pretty good reach. So, we just asked her, and much to our surprise, she said sure, and did her recordings over in Quebec, sent them to Casey, and plopped them in there, and it was great to have I always wanted to do a duet like that. I was inspired by like the Pogues, their Fairy Tale in New York, and Mass Intruder more recently did a really good one, and even the Bouncing Souls have one from their Hopeless Romantic album. So I just it's always something in the back of my mind that I wanted to pull off, but girls don't like me, run away from me. So
girls don't like me.
I had to do a long distance. She's like, there's like 5 provinces between you. Yeah, so I'll never get on stage with you.
No chance of actually stalking in the park, right? Like it's got to be 1,000 miles away.
Yeah, I got the ankle bracelet, so I can't go near.
I will say, all kidding aside, though, like the vocal performance that you have on this album is actually by far and away the best vocals, and I feel like you've finally managed to find that register and range that you kind of can stay within in order to, as you and probably most people would know, it's going to sound too nasally at a higher range, which is super common with punk singers. I mean, Fat Mike did it. Ben Weasel did it. Lots of guys will stay up in that high register. Tom DeLonge famously did it for Blink-182. What is it about the recording process this time that kind of allowed you to tap into that? Or was it something else? Was it an accident?
Well, like I said, we practiced the crap out of them, and then we down-tuned. That's a godsend for bad singers. singers.
Well, at least you didn't have to auto-tune your own voice and have a robot
Green
sing
Day
it
did
for
it.
you.
Oh, Green Day did it on that. Yeah, that was it. And then, to be honest, like literally sung certain parts and had you sing it back because I was actually one of the songs that Ozone wrote. I'm like, I can't sing this. He's like, just follow my lead. I literally did it line by line. And when it's actually singing, I can yell all right, but I'm definitely not a super talented singer by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, I don't think for punk music, that's the good thing about it is you don't have to be super talented. You just have to be committed and find your own voice in the genre, right? So it doesn't. I mean, I think it sounds actually really good. Versus, I still attribute my bad singing to Tom DeLonge and Ben Weasel being two of my favorite, singers back when I was in high school. And I was like, man, I want to sing really high for the rest of my life, huh? And I did until I got to be about 30 years old or whatever, and decided to stop doing that.
Get back into it, man.
Yeah, I still write every once in a while. It just takes, so much other things to do in a day now. I'm like, I'm not as nearly as talented as a musician as I am at other things. So, but
pick and choose.
Yeah, exactly. This album also has obviously other members of the band singing lead vocals at some point in the album. Ozone, I know that you sing at least one song, and then I know that Riley sings at least a part in one song. How is that kind of transformed some of the songs? And is this the first time that, each of you guys have actually sung on lead vocals on any song, or is it just like for this project, that's the first time?
For this band, definitely first time.
How'd you feel about it, Ozone?
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't like singing live, but when I'm in the studio and I can sit there and actually practice, I don't mind it at all. So, and like on the older albums, I do a lot of the harmonies and the Melvin yells. So
yeah, the gang vocals and stuff.
Yeah. So I don't mind it. Yeah, I just don't really like singing live. So I like jumping around and running around the stage and writing bass parts that are a little out of my zone that I can't sing and play. So even when we were actually some of the songs, I specifically said, like, I literally cannot sing any harmony or do anything at this part because
too focused on what my hands are doing.
Otherwise, you'll just be completely wrong notes and it'll sound terrible. So.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's practicing now for a year. It's getting closer, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I could have. But
yeah, I think that's pretty common for a lot of people. If you want to, you want to excel at the singing part, or you want to excel at the instrumentation part, and only the really, really talented people do both. And it's like, how the fuck can they do that?
Yeah, exactly, right. So.
I'm like, how are you singing while playing something completely out of the same tempo as what you're playing? It makes no sense to me.
Be a challenge.
But yeah. So I have to ask, obviously we talked about Stalk in the Park. Now it's just about a drunk guy. You claim he might've been spiked, his drink might've been spiked, but this song in general, I feel like it's hitting a little too close to home. Who's actually lived this real life experience, and how did you guys come about writing this song?
I wrote this one. I kind of was hinting at them what my idea was, and they were like, I think I even sent them the lyrics first, and they were just like, what the heck is this? Like, and then I'm like, just hear me out. And then I recorded it, like my idea of how it should sound, and then they're like, okay, I get it now. And they're like, but
I thought they might have
not really about it
even before you recorded it.
What's that?
I said they thought they were gonna have to call the cops on you even before you recorded it.
Yeah, the actual story is not. It's more of like a conglomeration of all kinds of just between myself. I mean, who among us hasn't woken up in a park or somewhere weird after a night of too much boozing? But I don't know. The older you get too, like. I have friends, they'll be macking on someone and they'll find out, like mother of 6, like not what they were looking for at all. And the woman was not into it at all. So just kind of poking fun at how we're getting older and how it kind of gets a little sad when you're still partying like you were in high school, so.
Yeah.
So no, it's not about anybody in particular, just kind of poking fun at getting older and, it's not cute anymore to be the drunkest guy at the party when you're north of 35.
Yeah, exactly.
But it does make for a funny song.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've definitely seen some of my friends, and one of my friends, he was in his 20s at the time, went home with like a 55-year-old who he was like, she's the hottest girl I've ever seen. I'm like, okay, whatever, dude, go ahead. I'm
He's
like,
a grandpa
yep,
now.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Grandpa overnight.
But anyway, so I do want to talk about punk rock and Canadian punk rock for just a minute, because it really does seem that punk is coming back around right now, as everyone who ever seemingly has played in a punk band seems to be releasing new music or doing reunion tours this year. Do you guys feel like there is a new wave coming for punk music right now?
I think that this is just what I've noticed. I may be way out to lunch, but I kind of feel like it all kind of came from these all these festivals that have been popping up. So bands that maybe it wasn't worth it for them to do just a standalone tour, maybe just because they have other commitments, they're older. Now they started doing these, I don't want to say like nostalgia fests, but like they start doing these fests where they get paid a good chunk of money. And they're like, oh, this is a lot of fun playing for big crowds. Like, I haven't done this since the 90s. So, and then as a result, they're inspired, they make music. I mean, I think a lot of those bands have put out some pretty cool music, like way after the fact. Like Face to Face has had some good albums. Melancholy did that really good album. When was that one?
Oh yeah,
the True Brew or whatever. That was really good. So there, I mean, I'm not going to name names. Some of them I think have kind of mailed it in a bit. Yeah. But I think a lot of them, I think you just can't really put out a crappy album anymore. I mean, you can, but not on purpose, where you just have the one or two good songs. Like it's streaming. People aren't just going to buy your vinyl or your CD just because you have it. It's got to be at least half good. Can't just be the one single and that's it anymore. So I mean, that I might be wrong, but that's kind of what I noticed, is when there just kind of used to be a few different festivals, and now like you don't have. We're even starting to get a few in Alberta, but like Quebec, there's one every freaking weekend, like huge festival.
Yeah, I mean, they call it festival season now, right? So it's like you either going on a North American tour through festivals, or you're going to Europe and playing a bunch of festivals there. And you'll play some little places in between, but it's like, you got
those anchor shows
exactly.
so you don't have to make a killing on these smaller shows, because you got. So that's kind of what I think kind of was. Yeah. That's these bands coming back anyways. NOFX, Bad Religion, those bands didn't go anywhere, but like the Jughead's Revenge or 10-Foot Poles of the world that were kind of not doing anything for a while, and then they've come back. That's my explanation for it. Maybe Ozone has a different view on it, but I think it makes sense.
Ozone's figured it out. Let's hear this.
I think it's easier too for bands to work remotely, right? Like, so, and that leads into Josh's same point, right? So, what was 20 years ago? Your member moves away, you break up.
Yeah,
that's not the case anymore, right? It might be now with air travel prices, but I mean, you can work on songs, you can write together, you can hang out online, doing whatever now, right? So you can write an album and then go play all these festivals, whereas 20 years ago that wasn't the case, right? So
yeah, you're just depressing me now, because that's exactly why my band in high school broke up, because we moved away to go to college, and I was like, well, I guess I'm not playing in a band anymore.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Right. Like, so, I mean, it stems from, I mean, music, I think is, it goes in cycles. So
yeah,
hopefully it'll be another skate. I don't know if a skate punk's back to where it could be yet. Right. But there's certainly a lot more guitar on the radio than there used to be. So.
Yeah. And whether or not it's good guitar on the radio or not doesn't seem to matter, because as long as it pulls the rest of the genre up and into the spotlight, that's all that really matters.
And I think even with streaming too, people just listen to more variety of music, right? Like back in the day, it seemed like, you like rap, or you like metal, or you like punk, or you like hardcore, or you like EDM, I don't know. Whereas now it's like, I don't know, if you look at my, Spotify saved songs, I've got everything, right? Like,
I don't think those are child friendly, and we don't want to look at any of your search browser. Sorry.
Yeah. Do that.
No, but I get the point. I mean, it's easy, because you don't have to go out and purchase an album now. If you got a Spotify account, you can go listen to anything for free, right? Like, it's that $10 a month or whatever. So you can jump into different genres and find stuff that may not have fit your fancy, from one song. Because to be honest with you, if ever a band puts out a song and it gets on the radio, it's likely not their best song. It's just the thing that is most kind of widely releasable to attract as many people as possible. Whereas kind of the the people that might like a band like, Trashed Ambulance might hear Stalk in the Park and go, oh, sure, that's, a novelty song or whatever, but, that's not kind of my thing. But then you go listen to the rest of the album and you'd be like, holy shit, this whole album rocks, from start to finish versus, what the one song you heard. And you're like, well, I'm not going to buy that album. Then you don't have to buy the album. You just go listen to whatever part of it you want to listen to, or, try any other song on the album for free.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, I told you you figured it out.
Yeah.
He's not just the looks of the band, Josh.
Told you.
Well, and we were very deliberately having a good mix of styles on this album, right? Without straying too far from the punk rock path. Like we didn't have I would say we didn't have a power ballad, but we did do that with the side projects. Send you the link. Full on 80s hair metal power ballad.
That's funny.
Yeah, so we didn't want to just put a whole bunch of, just the whole album of that wasn't really what we wanted to do. So
I kind of get sick of variety. I was gonna say I kind of get sick of a band playing kind of same song over and over again and then doing that for like 10-15 years straight. I'm like, holy shit, like can you at least chop some of this up, like work with a different producer or something to kind of give us some variety, because pretty stale now. But I know exactly what you mean. I will say, obviously,
Canada has it covered. We didn't need to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Canada does seem to be riding that wave pretty heavy as well, with a lot of new music from punk bands across the Great White North. What do you guys think about Canada stepping up for punk music right now?
But even on the label that we're on, right? Like, there's some freaking heavy hitters on our label.
Yeah.
Maybe you can name them, Ozone.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite bands in Canada is The Core out of Vancouver. So, I mean, I don't know when they signed to the same label as us, but I mean, before some of the members were touring with the Real Mackenzies, and he just gave us a demo of his band, or not a demo, I guess it was an EP of his band at the time. This is awesome. I remember listening to it on the 8-hour drive on repeat. It was only 5 songs, probably listened to it like 50 times. So it was so then they
because we couldn't figure out how to change it.
How to change it? Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I didn't mute it though. And it's good to see bands like Belvedere. They've been touring Europe consistently, right? So putting out new albums. So yeah, it's definitely stepping up the game.
Yeah, cool. So I know that you guys are going to do a little bit of
Calgary.
Oh yeah, Bring on the Storm, yeah. So I was going to say you guys are doing a little bit of touring. Yeah, for the last song, yeah.
Sing.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going to say, you guys are now touring a little bit to help promote this album. Obviously, by the time this episode comes out, the tour might be over, but I just want people to understand, obviously, not only do you guys all have families, jobs, obviously to support the music endeavor, but Canada and North America in general are a big ass place, so you guys are not exactly in like a sprawling metropolis area up there. So how do you guys view touring, and do you have plans for longer tours that might go across other provinces or across the country, or even dip into the United States at all?
We're not against it, like you said. Like especially the prairie provinces, it's very vast. If you want to go to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan to Winnipeg, I think it's like 8-hour drive or something. Like that's a lot of driving.
Yeah,
and gas is like $2 a liter. I don't know what that would be in gallons or whatever you guys do.
Roughly,
yeah, it's not cheap. So like we don't have big guarantees at our shows. Usually just door splits, or people are generous, so promise us a little bit of money, free meals and beer. But so yeah, we kind of just hit up around us. I mean, there's a few major cities around us. We got Calgary, Edmonton, so we can hit those places up quite a few times in a year without them getting sick of us. Where we live, there's 100,000 people. There's a couple other cities like that in our cross. So we are planning on heading west to BC for a few shows, but as far as the States, I think it's kind of a pain to get your visas and stuff for Canadian bands. At least I've heard that. I don't know. I've never really tried. We've also never been asked to go down there, besides the odd Facebook comment. Come to Boise, Idaho. Sure, man.
Yeah. Why haven't you come to Brazil? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're the only one that's ever heard of us from Brazil.
Do you want to pay for our tickets?
Sure. Yeah.
It'd be worthwhile if we could hop on, I'd love to go on, Europe tour, if we can hop on, with a bigger band right now. But it just, I mean, if we did it ourselves right now, it'd basically be a paid vacation as long as we want, that we probably lose way more money right there. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that makes it tough when you have families and stuff, right? Taking
Yeah,
all
exactly.
that time off, spending all that money, and not taking the kids to Disney World is a
Yeah.
hard one to sell.
So
Yeah,
like
I
tour
think
Florida.
it's kind of like trying to remain an adult child is kind of what I think me and Tim Casher from Curse have kind of decided upon, is that you have to act like a grown child to be in a band past 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of, and I mean, we have friends that kind of do that, like full on commit, right? And they'll tour across the country, and
Yeah.
we're envious, but we're also princesses who like our own beds and
Yeah.
not pooping in weird places.
that happens here.
That's true.
I was like, I can't make it out of the front door before I have to find the next bathroom on the highway.
Were you watching me this weekend? Whoa.
So have I
Even
missed
that
anything
little-
else that you guys are kind of looking forward to in the next few months? I think you guys are you playing a festival, or is it just the kind of mini tour that you guys have put together?
Yeah,
Oh.
there is a festival south called Sonar. So it's we're playing it. A couple of our side project bands are also playing it, and then a bunch of other local bands. So Josh and I actually run a record label on the side. So
You can promote the record label. You don't have to say what, you don't have to like hide it or anything. What's the name of it?
High End Denim Records. So
High
we
End
love
Denim.
high. Yep. So so there's a couple of those bands playing as well. So yeah, that should be a good.
So the only way to make festivals worth it for you guys is to play every single slot, or have some sort of vested interest in every band on the slots, right?
Honestly, it's just gonna be there's a bunch of our friends playing it. It's just gonna be like a bro down. Like, it's actually all ages too. So like, if you wanted to, you could bring your kids, and that's one thing that we just did last weekend. Just played our first all ages show in a long time. And it was cool to see, young kids just moshing and having a good time. It kind of is inspiring, like
Yeah.
everybody
And
complains
it's
about the next generation, and it's like, you know what, they're just screwed up kids like we were. So that's just,
Yeah, exactly. It's just,
therapy.
I don't think that because they don't get exposure to punk music like we used to, because when I was in high school, I was always searching for something that I like to listen to. And it was quite hard because the radio was like Billy Joel and Madonna. And I'm like, I don't want to listen to this stuff. Not again, anything against Billy Joel. Think he's a great guy. The Piano Man is awesome. But, I was never going to be Billy Joel, right? Like, I was never going to be that good at piano, never good at singing. So I was like, let's find something else. And then obviously Green Day, all these other bands started coming out, Rancid. And I was like, well, I can kind of pull this off. Like, this is way easier than trying to figure out how to play Piano Man or, anything that Billy Joel's ever done. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
But
I was
I
gonna say,
almost, to that point, but now that since we're older, our kids are getting older, so it doesn't matter how cool your parents are, you're still going to think they're dorky. But I got lots of friends that their kids actually love punk because they were kind of brainwashed.
Yeah.
They don't know any better, but bands like Me First and Gimme Gimme helps with that, and
yeah.
covers of the
Covers
kids'
and all
songs
that
and stuff.
Yep.
You can kind of get their feet wet with those, and then hit them with the Dead Kennedys when they get older.
Yeah. Bad Brains and all this stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good point because I think, obviously my dad was, a child of the 60s and 70s. So he was all about classic rock. And when I grew up, that's played Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Rush, all that kind of stuff, Pink Floyd. And still Pink Floyd's my favorite band of all time. Obviously not punk at all, but I don't think any band's ever going to be as talented as Pink Floyd ever was. But now I had to find my own music, and it wasn't going to be classic rock because classic rock stopped existing in like 1981. And then it just changed into like hair metal and like pop rock that was like, ballad style, like Journey and Def Leppard and all those kinds of bands. And I was like, well, that's not exactly my thing either. That's more my mom's thing. She likes to listen to Richard Marx and all this soft listening. So I had to go find my own stuff. And then that's when I kind of found punk music and ska and all that stuff. So I think you're right. you're going to get influenced by your parents' music, whether or not you find it as your own or not. You'll find things that you like within that genre for sure. And then you'll move on to some other stuff that your parents don't even quite get yet.
100%. Yeah.
Yep.
Do you guys know the Guess Who down in America?
The Guess Who? Yeah.
That was my dad's favorite band.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I guess their big song was American Woman. So
yeah. Yep. Exactly.
It wasn't very
not as big as
complimentary to American Women though.
yeah. Yeah. Well, Lenny Kravitz covered that song like 15, 20 years later. So that kind of helped as well.
His version was so bad though. Compared to the, you know.
Yeah. Well, don't tell Lenny Kravitz that.
If I ever see him,
I loved your daughter in the Batman movie though.
Yeah.
He killed it. I think that's his daughter.
Zoe, yeah, it's his daughter.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was gonna say we'll add some links to the music in the notes below. Obviously, the episode here. Do you have anything else you'd like to plug, or anything you want to say to listeners, or anyone that has yet to find you before we go today?
Thanks for having us on, man. Thanks anyone who actually gives a good gosh darn about our music. Like, I mean, obviously we haven't made it. We're 36, but I mean, we have a lot of fun. We keep it stress free. I mean, we take it seriously in the way that, like Ozone said, we jam once a week. We play as much as we can. We don't want to put out crappy music or suck on stage, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And if you have any cool opportunities, like maybe taking us to Japan or something, we'd be into that.
Yeah.
or to Vegas. We'll play punk rock bowling.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be awesome. It's only
your rip off your backyard.
It's only 10 months away or so. So yeah, I think you're on schedule for now. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Stern Bros.
And they could just make it like a 7-day festival and have everybody from Canada that's releasing an album this year come down.
That'd be a good festival.
Yeah.
Hey Isaac, is the punk rock museum in Vegas open yet that Mike was doing?
No, it started construction. It's kind of got like the I guess the structure being built inside, but it doesn't even have walls yet, as far as I know. Like they're kind of like sectioning off stuff so you can have like mini areas for each thing. But as far as I know, it like from what I've seen from the Instagram stuff, it's not even close. It's probably going to be another 4 months at least away. So when they say it's open in 2022, it's probably Christmas Day or maybe New Year's Eve.
There we go. That's our plans.
And then I'll say one last question before we sign off.
South to escape these prairie winters.
Yeah, exactly. It's not much warmer here, to be honest with you, in like December, January. But I mean, it is much warmer, but it's not that warm. You'd be surprised. It's like it's in the 30s, so like 0 degrees Celsius, which kind of sucks. But it's not minus temperatures usually. But I will say one thing before we sign off is recommend one band that people should check out before we go today, and I'll give each one of you guys a shot.
Well, let's just go with some of the guys on our label. Let's give them a shout out. So yeah, I'll just go with Bring on the Storm, our buddies in Calgary. They put out a pretty sweet, 4 or 5 song EP. I think it's 4 songs.
Nice.
Yeah, sounds amazing, and they can shred, so they deserve some hype. I guess all our other friends are gonna be mad that I said them. Check out the Morons sessions. Every other band.
Sounds good.
I'm not really into I had to look up their name, so I'm obviously not into it, but enough that I saved all the song. They're called Strike Again, and they're from Tokyo.
Okay.
And I think it was Josh. You sent me them like a month ago, and they have I think an album and a couple EPs, and I listen to them all day. I'm like, wow, this is really, really good. And I honestly kind of forgot about them. And then this morning when I got to work, I just put on shuffle, and then the first song that came on again was one of the tracks, and I actually had to stop what I was doing and go back. I'm like, this song is so good. What is? And it was Strike Again. So I'm telling you that just more so that I don't forget about them again. But yeah, they're awesome. I think they're last
Strike
album
Again.
last year. So
Bring us out to Japan, buddies.
You have to strike yourself to remember the name. That's
again.
So strike yourself again to remember the name again. Oh, very cool. So awesome, guys. I want to thank you so much for being here. Obviously, Josh and Ozone from Trash Ambulance for being on the show. Make sure to go check out the show notes below this episode to listen to their music, because they are absolutely awesome, and they're going to be doing some really big things soon, hopefully, by coming to Punk Rock Bowling. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Let's get some other festivals to kind of bring you guys down to the States as well. Remember, the Powered by Rock podcast is powered by our listeners. If you want to show us support, please be sure to subscribe and share the podcast on social media. You can also make a donation to the podcast to help us keep making some awesome episodes with awesome guests. You can find that link in the notes as well. You can see the full interview on our YouTube channel and on Spotify now as well. If you want to check out some of our articles, album reviews, lists, and interviews, go to poweredbyrock.com to read our absolutely free rocking blog, and also find our merch and gear so that you can pick up some items to play and look like a rock legend. That's our show for today. We'll see you soon for the next episode. Until then, rock on.
Supposed to be easy.